Hello everybody, welcome to another Ubuntu Engineering update. Today I've got Kevin, Thomas, Michael, and Alan with me who are going to give updates on their work that they've been doing as part of Ubuntu Engineering. If you have any questions, we have an IRC channel that's running. It's #ubuntu-on-air on Freenode IRC. Or if you go to ubuntuonair.com, you'll get an embedded video and an embedded IRC window so you can watch and ask your questions all on the same screen. It's really convenient. You can ask questions at any time while we're talking. We'll just wait until we're done to answer them. If you start it with the word question in all caps, I'll get a nice highlight so that I can keep track of what's being asked. And like I said, again, you can ask questions at any time. Don't wait until we're done if you have something that you want to ask. All right, we'll go ahead and start it off with Alan.
It's always me first, isn't it?
It goes alphabetically.
Okay, I'll change my name. So last week was a short week post-release, and we had a holiday in the UK as well. So slightly less activity last week than previous weeks. And David Planella took that week took that quiet week as an opportunity to fix some of the build setup for some of the apps. So there was a bit of churn in the build system, not necessarily churn in the apps themselves. First one was reminders. We've got quite a complicated build setup in that we need to be able to support building Debian packages for the desktop and click packages for the devices, the phone and the tablet. And we need to be able to do that in our CI infrastructure, Jenkins, and we also do it from within Launchpad, and we also need to be able to build it from Qt Creator and from the command line with ClickBuddy. So David implemented some changes to the build system, and that's all been done and landed now, and there's a nice little README in there that explains how to build the Reminders app. We also had some inconsistencies in naming, which was fixed by Nick Skaggs, so we appreciate that. And we also had a problem with Reminders in that it was failing to launch on the desktop. One of the handy things about having the Core Apps PPA is we can test out all the Core Apps, not just on the devices, but on the desktop as well. And we discovered a problem launching on the desktop, which was also fixed. In the music app, Andrew's been working hard with Jim Hodap, who's working on Media Hub. Andrew's been working to ensure that the music app doesn't break when we land Media Hub, which should land soon. And so there's been a lot of testing of the music app going on. We also discovered a missing dependency in the music app, which was fixed as well. Calendar, Kunal's been doing a bit of code refactoring and chugging through a bunch of bugs that people have been filing since the 1404 image was promoted. We've had an influx of calendar bugs, so a lot of those have been filed and are being worked on. And that's Calendar's probably one of our Calendar and Music are two of our most complicated apps. So the changes that are being made in Calendar have an impact because it behaves slightly differently on the device than it does on the desktop. So we have to be pretty careful about how we land those. So so some of the landings are taking a little bit of time. There's a lot of testing and there's a lot of moving parts as well because we're dependent on things like evolution, EDS, and other bits which make it a bit slow going sometimes to land some things, but we're doing our best to increase the velocity of that. Onto our RSS reader, we had a contribution from Leo, who cleaned up some of the tests in the RSS reader, also known as shorts. And finally, in the file manager, David was running rampant in the build setup there as well. The file manager app consists of two parts: the file manager app itself and a C plugin, and he did some work to make that build system better. So I think that's about it. The other thing that's worth mentioning is we've been going through some outstanding merge requests, which we've been a little bit slack on and have been languishing for a little while. So you might notice a greater churn in all of the core apps over the past couple of days and the next week or so as we just try and push through all the remaining merge requests. I think in total, at the beginning of the week, we started with somewhere around about 45 outstanding merge requests for all of the core apps, all 8 core apps, and we're pushing those through and making sure we get back to people promptly. I think we're down to about 29 now. So yeah, you should see some updates landing in all of the core apps over the next couple of days. I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, Alan. If you have any questions about core apps, go ahead and start asking those. We had a few of them come in. I'm going to go ahead and go through them right now. Safiero asked, what are the plans after 14.10? So we've just started the plans for 14.10. So asking what's going to come after that, we don't know yet. It'll depend on how much we get done in 14.10. If you're interested in knowing what we're going to do for that release, we have another Ubuntu Developer Summit coming up. It's June 10th through the 12th. It's all online, Hangouts and IRC just like this, so anybody who wants to participate can. The schedule will be on summit.ubuntu.com as soon as we get it up and start adding the sessions to it. When Tempe says he's excited about trying Ubuntu 14.04, but he's having trouble booting and freezing issues. What version should I try? 14.04 is an LTS, so that's usually what we would recommend. You can try 13.10 to see if the issues exist there or not. You should also make sure that you file bugs on launchpad.net so that our engineers can track these issues and get them fixed. You can also try askubuntu.com and see if anybody else has had any issues that are similar to yours and have a fix for it. Mr. Brownstone 3G, does Canonical have any staff working on Trojita yet? Kind of yes and kind of no. Alan's been working with the community developers who are working on Trojita to organize the development of an Ubuntu front end for that and schedule meetings and doing regular checkups and that kind of thing. And I've contributed a couple of patches to it. But as far as the actual development, it's been largely community so far. And that seems to be working out really well. They're making some good progress there, so I'm very happy with that. So Fiero asks again, and again, if you could start it with question in all caps, that'll make it easier for me to see your questions. Will you be able to use Android directly in Ubuntu on the desktop? That to me is important. No. It sounds like you're asking if you can run Android itself. You could run it in an emulator, but you can do that right now. And I'm not sure why you would outside of developing Ubuntu or developing Android apps. So if that's not what you mean, if you can clarify your question a little bit. And finally, Chris asks, how can I use Ubuntu for small business? I want to easily set up an intranet with shared files, printing, email, etc. I don't think we have one install for that. You can use Ubuntu Server and install things like Samba for file and printer sharing. I'm not sure what the recommended email client is, or email server is these days. I would just Google around. I'm sure a lot of people have done a similar setup, so you can see what other people are doing. All right, and that's all the questions we've got for now, so we'll move on to Kevin Gunn.
Okay, so I'll cover off Mir. So we were able to tag 0.1.9 on our development branch, as I mentioned last week, and that's going to contain the non-blocking swap buffers, which is the big paradigm shift for us that addresses the Qt toolkit render thread blocking. And we're working on promoting that now, so that's being built and tested. We just had to wait on a little bit of backlog. Of course, you know, the whole machine sort of had to turn its target to utopic, so we're now beyond that, so that's good. Work can continue. And as far as the development branch goes, we're still doing work around the trusted session. That's the embedded application use case, so kind of like picking a picture and putting it on Facebook. Also worked to enable Qt as a plugin compositor inside of Mir, as well as we did some investigation into our switching bundle mechanism. So it's kind of early days, really, but talking about being able to dynamically switch between like a double buffering and a triple buffering scheme, and sort of discussing what benefits you get from each. So haven't really concluded on that, but for the moment, those are both statically available, so you can either double buffer or triple buffer, but we're not really sure whether it's worth the headache to dynamically enable that. As I mentioned last time, we were doing some work around X input, and that's actually working now. So that's on that thread of eventually supporting a rootless X server for legacy apps. That work is under review, so it should be landing soon. We've also been working on adding regular runs of GeoMark 2 as part of our CI, and that's kind of turned into more of an effort and investigation into how to modify our CI runs more than the test itself. So the test itself is really easy to run, and it's it's something that we've been doing in the background, but to make it part of our formal CI run has been a little bit of a challenge, but we're working on it. So that's about all I have for this time.
Thank you, Kevin. Here's a question for you. Mr. Brownstone 3G is asking, will Mir benefit from the work on Glamour DRI3 Present extension?
I'll have to punt and say don't know that much about it. I know we have talked about Glamour itself being something that we would potentially leverage, and a lot of that's going to depend on where our partners go in terms of what they desire to have in place in terms to support their GPU drivers.
All right. This guy named Popey is asking you, when do we expect the feature freeze exception for SDL 2.0.2 with Mir support to land in the image?
I'll have to punt on that one too. I don't know that. I guess Brandon Schaefer did actually file a feature freeze exception, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, there is. There was some build problems. I'm eager to play.
Sorry, Alan, couldn't hear you.
Sorry, there is an FFE, and I think there was some build problems, so it hasn't had.
Oh, it didn't make it through.
No, I just wondered if you knew, because I'm eager to play with it.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to say. I guess I keep my eye more on Mir than SDL Mir per se. I know I had played with it a few weeks back and had hit a little bit of an issue, and I had pinged Brandon about it as well. So
I guess it's not so much a feature freeze exception at this point. We're a little bit late to get one of those in.
Right. But it is active. I mean, it's something that will definitely be available in Utopic, obviously.
All right. Another one for you, Kevin. Grasshopper is asking, will Mir have any advantages for thin clients like LTSP?
For thin clients, I wouldn't. So that's a strange way to put it. Any advantages? I mean, so I can't really think of any advantage over any other display server. I mean, display servers are kind of boring in that regard, right? I mean, they're just going to put pixels on the screen if you tell it to. So there's nothing that's going to be prohibitive.
Okay. Going back, I missed one. Grasshopper asked what languages will be supported for app development. We currently support C++, QML with JavaScript, and HTML5. Those are our 3 officially supported languages. Go is coming soon, so you'll be able to use a combination of Go and QML. No Python or Java official support right now. You can package those runtimes with your app. I think there's one in the store that's got a JVM as part of the click package itself. So there's an option for you if you need to use those languages. But the 3 I mentioned plus Go coming soon are the ones we want to encourage. And we have a couple other questions here, which I think are going to seg nicely into Michael's discussion on what's going on with Unity. ADI asks, any speculation on when we will see the Unity 8 preview shaping up for desktop? when will it turn from mobile version to desktop version?
So it's happening in a sense right now. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to happen over possibly 2 releases at least. I wouldn't expect 13.10 to be complete in that regard. 15.04 we hope to be good enough.
And if I could just sort of piggyback onto what Savik's saying as well, is that there's a lot of design questions that are being raised. So it's not necessarily just like a heap of technical debt or technical issues that that we have before us. There's a lot of sort of open design questions that we need to answer before we move. Also, what does convergence look like? Do you just accept that you have sort of old designs and what they were on Unity, or do you take on some of these new presentations of potentially the same data but in a different way? Do we incorporate those, and how do you do it? So those are the kind of questions I think we have to get answered.
All right. And then Mr. Brownstone3G is asking, will a converged desktop be a Qt port of Unity 7?
Depends on what you call port, but the converged desktop will be an Unity 8 extended to support desktop use cases. So in a sense, yes. Caveat, what Kevin said, we don't necessarily know yet because user experience design needs to happen, and there's a lot of that.
And if you want to follow along what's going on with this, you can get the source code for Unity 8. If you go to unity.ubuntu.com, there's this page there that'll walk you through getting the source code, building it, and running it locally. You can also install the Unity 8 preview session on your desktop if you're on Trusty or Utopic already. And that'll let you log out of Unity 7 and log into Unity 8. It's right now very much what you would see on a tablet, so don't expect to be able to use it as your daily desktop yet, but you should be able to track development that's going on using that session. All right, so do you have an update then, in addition to all these questions, Michael?
Yeah. So we managed to get the first Utopic release today. There's not a huge lot going on in there UI-wise. There's quite some test fixing, but the greeter has been improved a little for discoverability. So that's what I mentioned last week, what's going to happen. We have a solution for the scope performance issues that we are working on, and that should hopefully land maybe later this week and early next week at the latest. And we should be getting back to the performance we had prior to new scopes with that. The new right edge implementation for tablet is coming along, so we should expect the first MPs like this week, next week, and hopefully landed soon thereafter. And we also, because it's the beginning of the cycle, we had a lot of blueprint churn. So if you want to follow on what's gonna happen in T8 this cycle, following any of those blueprints, which there are a lot of, should get you going. You're welcome to discuss on the whiteboards, and we'll hopefully improve those over time when we actually know what we want to happen this cycle as well. That's about it.
All right, thank you. We had one question from Sofiero, who didn't start his question with the word question in all caps, so I missed it the first time around. Why not walk away from Firefox to Google Chrome instead of the base installation? So every release cycle, this is a topic that comes up for years now, is replacing Firefox with Chromium. It wouldn't be Chrome because Chrome is not 100% open source, and so we can't freely redistribute it the way we need to. But Chromium is an option, and that does come up regularly, and I'm sure there will be yet another session about it, probably in the next UDS. The long and short of it is, when Chromium is a better solution for us, we'll switch to it. So far, Firefox has been the best option, and as long as it continues to be the best option, we're going to stick with it. All right, and I don't see any other questions, so we'll move on to Thomas Strehl.
Yes. So, trying to cover scopes, indicators, and the like. So I guess the topic of the last probably 3-4 days is really landing all the different changes that accrued over the last 2 weeks. So since we were mostly working on features, not really relevant for 14.04 anymore, quite some piled up, and now we are pushing everything as we go along. So what we have done on the scope side is we finally fully implemented the functionality that we're able to respawn scopes. So for example, if they crashed, whatever, so getting more secure on that side. We will also just invoke scopes now when we really need them, meaning like, you know, if there's no query, whatever, then those will just be there but not running. Introducing the functionality that kills the scope after a certain idle timeout. That's what we will hopefully get done end of this week or mid of next week. With those two things, I think from runtime performance, we are there where we wanted to be. We still are experimenting around Go scopes, etc., how to make those more efficient. But in general, this is the big block, the 80% of that story. There was also a demand on being able to update scopes itself. So scopes architecture itself is a pure query framework, meaning there's a dash firing a query to the scope, and the scope only responds to a query. But depending on which scope you write, so think of a weather scope or a new scope, there is the wish to let the scope update by itself. And you know, we really have to be careful not to put our architecture upside down, and therefore we are looking into a couple of different solutions. So it will be a mixture of solutions to that problem, and the mixture is mostly around two things. That's one, in the end, utilizing push notifications, so that the backend service, the web service, can then make a push notification to our dash, and the dash would then basically start a query or re-query the scope. So with that, we won't put the information flow upside down. The other thing is that we are about to introduce a TTL parameter. With that, a scope author can basically decide in a certain order of magnitude how long the results might be valid or not. And if that times out, we will re-query if necessary, meaning if the scope is visible. So that hopefully will land end of this week or beginning of next week. Then we took quite a lot of effort to make all the scopes translatable, introducing a framework for that. And the click scope already took advantage of that, having translations there for Chinese, etc. Well, that's just the click scope itself, meaning it's not the contents of the click scopes, meaning like translations of application names, application descriptions, etc. That will follow as we go along, and there's also an activity to build infrastructure for that, to offer that for people on Launchpad, etc. to do that. Talking more about the click scope, there has also finally finished the work around the ratings and reviews. It's about to land as we speak. We added to the preview the application author's information, so that people can really see now as well in the preview who wrote that application, where it's coming from, to get a little bit more information before installing it. And otherwise, we're working still on the department support. So currently it's just a scope backend thing, so we're still waiting on getting the APIs from the Click store on server side, and Sabic will start next week, something like that, was implementing the respective UI on the Unity 8 side. So I guess like in probably 1.5 to 2 weeks, we should hopefully see its first appearance on the phone. On the indicator side, mostly the work was around the network indicator and connectivity API. So we do add tests as we speak, a lot of autopilot tests, unit testing to prepare the landing. And then there's also finally fixing the entire thing about Wi-Fi access point ordering deduplication, which hasn't really worked so far. Last item on the list is around the pay service. So pay service is kind of two sub-components. One is basically defining and implementing the UI flow that you actually see and click through, like which payment method you want to take, as a consumer and then click OK to buy, putting it quite simply. That has mostly been finished and working on autopilot tests. The other part that allows the application developer to actually utilize that flow, meaning with the pay service API, that is currently being implemented. That takes probably another 1 or 2 weeks. That's the overview on the Unity API side.
All right. Looking forward to that ratings and reviews landing. All right, so I have a question for you and probably for Michael too. We're getting quite a number of apps available in the store now, and just having a list of all of them on the phone is becoming a bit too long. So are we going to have the ability to filter those like we do on the desktop?
Well, it's getting better on the desktop once we are done. So that's part of what I said was the department support. So department support lets you kind of filter. We call it departments. Most people would say like app categories like games and utilities and that kind of stuff. So that's the first step. But we also have offer things like filters. So that's price and whatever. And then we will also have the possibility to sort the apps, like best rated, most recent, whatever. So all that is on the to-do list for the click scope for 14.10. So not everything will appear in 2 weeks, but everything is on the list.
All right.
There's probably some user design that needs to happen as well, because even if we allow departments and include filters, just opening the list of 10,000 applications that we will have is probably not the best user experience. So we will most probably have to limit that results, the default set of results, to either just by the number of them or something. We just need to come up with a way to make it basically more user-friendly from the get-go.
Okay. All right, and that's all the updates we have. I'm going to go through and go back to some of the questions that have come in, but go ahead and keep asking, because when we run out of questions, we will end the broadcast. So make sure you get them in before that happens. Grasshopper says it seems Python 2 is still needed. How long till the important libraries are all available in Python 3? So this is something Barry Warsaw, one of our engineers, has been pushing for about 2 years now. He's been our Python 3 advocate. And in Mark's blog post where he announced the Utopic Unicorn code name, that was one of the things that he specified, was moving completely off of Python 2 and having just Python 3, at least in the default image. So that's one of the targets for this release. Mr. Brownstone 3G asks, under USC, which I assume he means Unity System Compositor or Session Compositor, will LightDM and a window manager be necessary?
So yeah, it'll still be necessary, right? So you'll still have sessions that you run per user.
So I think also that maybe LightDM in this case is misunderstanding what LightDM does a little, because LightDM has no UI, for example. LightDM just spawns sessions and talks to, in that case, to USC.
Right.
Stuff happens this way. The greeter is what actually is the UI for the welcome screen on the phone or the login screen on the desktop. And yes, that is still needed. LightDM is needed for actually managing sessions, user sessions, etc. But yes. And window manager, yes, of course, window management is still needed, although it will be built into the shell and not separate like it was historically.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Unity 8 right now has technically a window manager that's being used on phone and tablet, right?
Yes, exactly, and that's going to be extended to support desktop use cases.
Yeah, it's simple today, and that's what whenever you see us on IRC and we refer to Unity Mirror, that's effectively the window manager.
Okay. All right, Bob X asks, what phone would you recommend me to buy where I can install Ubuntu and get a very good performance, and if possible, a way to connect to a monitor and get it to work as a desktop? Is this possible? Right now, the best device to get if you want to try Ubuntu on your phone is the Nexus 4. That's still our reference platform that we developed to. It does not have a way to plug in and get a desktop right now. That's waiting for Unity 8, really, to have a desktop mode. I think engineering-wise, it probably would be possible to export the UI to a monitor, but you're not going to get anything besides what's there in Unity 8 right now, which isn't ready for daily desktop use. Coming later this year, we should have 2 new phones on the market actually being sold to consumers with Ubuntu already on them. One from BQ, which is a Spanish manufacturer, and one from Meizu, which is from China. Neither of those, again, will be showing the desktop when you plug them in, because that won't be ready yet. But they should give you a very good Ubuntu performance out of the box, and you won't have to root or flash your phone or anything. So keep an eye out for those. Like I said, those are coming, supposed to be coming later this year. I don't have any actual release dates for that yet. All right, and that's all the questions that I see. Do any of you guys on here have any questions?
Nope.
All right. You can find us anytime during the week on other Freenode IRC channels, #Ubuntu-Touch, #Ubuntu-Unity, #Ubuntu-App-Devel, and several others. So if you have any questions during the week, you can hop on one of those channels and ask us. I'd also encourage anybody who's interested in these videos to follow our YouTube and Twitter accounts. It's youtube.com/UbuntuOnAir and twitter.com/UbuntuOnAir. You'll get updates on more Ubuntu Engineering live updates, as well as other live broadcasts that are being done by members of the Ubuntu community and Canonical. One final announcement, we're going to change this Ubuntu Engineering live broadcast from being weekly to being every 2 weeks. So we will not be back next week, but we will be back the following week. So come back again then. We should have 2 weeks worth of updates for you. All right, and I don't see any other questions in IRC yet, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everyone on IRC, for your questions. Oh, wait, we have Hatlabufarkas. Yes, so we can see your text. Ask your question. Get it in now so we can answer it. Give you a minute or two because there's a delay. Yes, you have a question. Go ahead and ask it. Ask it right where you're typing right now. We're waiting on you. This is the longest ask I've ever seen. All right, this next one better be the question, otherwise we're going to wrap it up. The 4 monitors, I have no idea. I have 1 laptop with 1 monitor. So join #Ubuntu for tech support chat, or try askubuntu.com. There's probably somebody who's tried what you're trying to do already, and there might be some answers there for you. And with that, we're going to close this broadcast down. Again, come back in 2 weeks for our next update. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, bye-bye.